You cannot adapt countries to climate change. You must adapt communities and cities. And we all know that cities are 50% of the people is living in cities, and we are emitting 70% of GHG emissions. But also in cities and in communities, we are experimenting this changing of the weather, and the mayors are the authority that are always in the front of the problem when we have a flood, fire, lose a crop. Mayors are the ones that are with citizens trying to solve this kind of problems. Are not national governments, presidents, who are in the first line of this responsibility. So that are the reasons why cities now are not waiting for national actions or international guide, but are leading the efforts. I am sure that cities right now together are doing more than national governments, and we have to press them to act right now. I think that we have spent 20 years to raising awareness, and we need to move on in another type of pressure for the international community, all the sectors to move on and very quick to try to reverse this phenomenon that is affecting a lot the planet, biodiversity, and the human race.
So you say local action should come from the local level. Now we know we are just a few days before Rio+20, the UN CSD, United Nations Commission on Sustainable Development Conference, which takes place next week in Rio, and that's the place where national governments come together to discuss about the status of sustainable development in the world. What do you expect to come out of those discussions next week? What would be your ideal outcome of that discussion?
You know, we know that this problem of environmental damaging is very hard for the planet. Not just climate change, but also the loss of biodiversity, desertification, the water scarcity. And I think that we all know that is happening. And what we want to see in Rio+20 meeting conference is political will, leadership, leadership in the decision makers, not the youth people. We heard, I want to comment this very fresh to you right now. We heard in the ICLEI panels these young people saying very clear that they don't want to receive a committed planet and the spoiled planet, and they are thinking not to having kids because they don't want them to live in a planet like this. That must be a very strong message, because political leaders are temporary, but this damage is permanent. So I really hope that message of local governments, youth, women, all the stakeholders, all the major groups that are very, very active on these agendas can touch hearts and minds and political will of the current leaders of the world that are making decisions. There are some of them that are very committed with this agenda, some of them, but we need all of them. So I hope to have this signs around the prime ministers, presidents, ministers, private sector leader, business leaders to commit on the reverse of this process that we started just 100 years ago.
Yeah, you've told about all the actions taken on a local level when it comes to climate change. What we, of course, we would also like to see next week is that there will indeed be a commitment on the national level. But we see that they can't do it on their own, and they would need the support of the local level. What do you see as the strategy that the local governments should take on for next week to show that they can help the national governments to come to a conclusion?
Do you know what? I think that local governments have taken a lot of voluntary commitments, actions, investments. The mayors need to demand financial resources for the policies. Mayors can do it alone and just with their own budgets. They can't. So, meantime, national governments get into agreements in the next 20 years. They must commit to finance local governments to do things in the field.
Yeah. Okay, that's a clear message, and I think all the local governments will welcome the extra finances. So thank you very much, and I wish you a very good World Congress here in Belo Horizonte.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Obrigado.
Obrigado.